There are likely only 2 games left in the Dave Gettleman era, which means talk will soon turn towards who will be replacing him as the Giants general manager. While nobody's completely sure who's going to be on John Mara's shortlist, I did hear some very interesting names over the last few weeks as I spoke to more than a dozen sources around the league. The overwhelming belief is that Mara is going to want to promote Assistant GM Kevin Abrams to the top job, and that he's been intending to do that ever since Gettleman was hired 4 years ago. There are people around the league who really respect Abrams, think he's more than qualified, and think he could do a very good job as the Giants general manager. He was hired as their cap expert more than 20 years ago, and his football portfolio has steadily increased, and he's been the VP of football operations there for the past 4 years. There are people who think that he would be more than just an extension of the Gettleman era if he gets that chance. That said, most people also think that the Giants should look outside of the organization and their family to find their next general manager. And there are 2 schools of thought on what type of candidate they should look for. One is that they should find an experienced general manager, and the name that came up most often was John Dorsey, the former GM of the Chiefs and Browns, who turned both of those teams into playoff contenders. The other school of thought is that they should and maybe will look at candidates with ties to Joe Judge, the head coach who is expected back in 2022 and who could have a very heavy hand in the search for the new GM. The name that comes up most often there is Monti Ossenfort, who is the Titans director of player personnel and has ties to Judge from their days together in New England. Now you can see the full list of candidates I've compiled at SNY.tv, but 2 other very interesting names that don't fit either category came up. One of them is Elliott Wolfe, the longtime Packers executive who's the son of the former Packers GM Ron Wolfe. He came up because a few years ago he was a top candidate for the Detroit Lions job when former Giants GM Ernie Accorsi was a consultant there, and the Packers blocked him from interviewing for that job. He was a favorite of Accorsi's, and Accorsi's voice still carries a lot of weight inside the Giants organization, so if he recommends Wolfe figures to get a look. The other name that came up was Joe Schoen, the assistant general manager of the Buffalo Bills, who's one of the top candidates on the GM cycle this time around. He started his rise through front offices in Miami years back when he was hired by their then vice president, who's another man who has a very, very strong voice inside the Giants organization, and that's their former head coach, Bill Parcells.